Hello and welcome to the Life They Live podcast. I'm the host, Nina, and in today's episode, Yann Lescouarch and I have a conversation about company gardening. Yann is a grower and he works on introducing corporate gardens in the workplace. A corporate garden is often a green area in a company where fruits and vegetables can be cultivated. Hello, Yann.
Hello, Nina.
Thank you for joining me today on this episode. We're going to talk about a topic that I don't know well, but I think it's a very interesting one. And in the future, it's going to keep developing, I'm sure, also.
Me too, and I hope.
Could you present yourself maybe in a few words before we start?
Sure. Well, so as you said, my name is Yann Lescouarch. I'm 41 years old, and I'm a potagiste, which is not a religion, but kind of. Since 6 years professionally, and as an amateur, like 12 years or something like this. Potagism, as I was saying, there is no word for that in English. It's a vegetable garden, but in French, the vegetable garden is a potager, and then you can imagine the guy working in a potager is a potagiste.
Yeah, I saw there are several words to refer to, for example, like grower, but also, if I'm not wrong, gardens in companies, I think, are also called corporate gardens, I saw. So I say,
Absolutely.
and you can also say urban farming, I guess, for
Well,
people.
yes, there are many labels that you can put on this kind of work. There are some nuances too, and that's why I had to invent such a word as the potagiste, because I didn't feel the other words were completely a good definition of what I'm doing.
Okay, yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people would have questions about what a potagist is because it's not necessarily known. So we will go deeper into that. But first, like we said, let's refer to it as like urban farming or potagist, and then you will explain more in detail what it
Sure.
means. But before, it would be nice if we can go step by step and start with the beginning. So as you said, it's been your job for 6 years. Could you tell us kind of like how your reconversion happened, what you did before, and how you changed to this new
Yes.
job?
Yes. Well, I've been working after a business school when I was a student. I've been working in Germany, in France, in logistics, in offices, and I've been, well, enjoying this during time because it was all new, and I was young. But in the end, after a few years, after many years, like after 10 years, and because I did this during 15 years, I felt that that was not really my place. I couldn't feel the sense of what I was doing. What was the purpose of this? It was not so aligned with my way of life, my way of thinking, and I was getting more and more awakened with ecology subjects and so on. This meaning transporting goods all around the planet that people are selling as marketers and that we probably don't need, coming from China, coming from everywhere, transported all over the world. I couldn't find myself aligned with this anymore, and I was missing some creativity part. I was missing some social linking. I was missing really purpose. So I was quite enjoying working outside, like landscaping and so on. But I had this idea since a few years, and I went from an idea to a job.
Yeah, and I think it was a nice story, the one you told me when we were preparing the episode about, I think it was some elderly man who gave up his garden. If you want to tell us about
Yes.
this.
Well, that's how I rediscovered vegetable gardens. I was in a kind of an association where you can get some vegetable basket every week, like 50 people doing this in solidarity with an agriculture. And in this group of people, there was one lady, and her grandfather was going in a retirement house, and he had a beautiful garden, which has an independent access. And this lady, she offered to anyone who was interested to inherit this parcel as a loaner, of course, just to take care of the land. And I thought that we would be more than one people interested in doing that. but I was the only one. So I started gardening with a huge garden of like 250 square meters or something like this, with fruit trees and very good piece of land. And that was like a virus. I spent a lot of time experimenting there, having really good time there, and well, no pressure. It was just for fun, and I really enjoyed the fun there. And then after a while, this garden, it was halfway between my home and my job, so not so far from the job, and I've been going there during the lunch break because well, garden, they need time, they need that you take care of them, and I was enjoying it. So more than spending every lunch with the same colleagues talking about the same problems, same stories. So it was really nice to get some fresh air in the garden, doing things under the sun, listening to birds and insects and bees and so on. And sometimes some colleagues, they were asking me when I was going there for lunch break, they were asking me, "Oh, you're going to the garden? May I come with you? This will change my break. You will show me things. We will do it together. It will be a nice fresh air," as I was saying. So I was like, people, they are quite interesting in going in gardens, but they don't dare doing it by themselves because, well, as city people, we kind of lost this link to nature and growing things. So people are interested in doing this, but they don't know how to do it, so they don't do it. And that's where urban farming is really interesting, not especially because of producing, but this social link, this way of learning again how to do it as our grandparents or before they were doing it. So this was the first point, that people, they really want to do it, but they need someone to help them to get in touch with that. And the second point was, as I was saying, I've been working in Germany, in Paris, in France, everywhere. And everywhere I've been working in offices, there were always those sterile places, these green lawns. They have no use. No one is playing football on them. No one is having picnic. No one is doing nothing. It's just about mowing the lawn once a week. This brings nothing. It has a cost. Or you can have some old flower places that are just a pain in the ass because everybody has to take care of them and nobody wants to do it because it doesn't bring anything except some flowers if you do it well. And from this concept, these two concepts, people want to do something. There are always empty spaces, sterile places in companies. This can be rooftops as well because there is only smokers that go there. And with this kind of two contexts, I was thinking that maybe we could transform those places in garden, like productive and social linked gardens, reconnection gardens, in workplaces, and have those people work together in a garden, like in a collaborative way, speaking about something else than work and meetings and classic things. And I was like, oh, I think I invented corporate gardening. And I was checking in France at that time. I didn't see anything. I was enlarging my search, and I saw that in places like Silicon Valley in the United States and so on, where people are quite more enlightened in this kind of subjects, they were starting to have corporate gardening. So I was thinking, well, maybe I this is a good idea to go deeper on. And
Yeah.
of course, it took me a little bit of time to mature this idea. And after a few years of thinking about it, I started this company, Culture d'entreprise, in 2015.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we can see that it's really a work in progress, and it's not like you just saw a job and you were like, oh, this looks interesting, I'm gonna go, but it's really you created that idea in your mind and you experienced it, and that it really took time also to come to that final product and to that conclusion. So that's very
Yeah.
interesting to see. And we're going to talk more about your company and how it started, but just quickly, to anyone who's listening and maybe wants to change jobs, would you have any advice or anything you would like to say about people who would like to do a reconversion?
Yes, of course. Well, I don't know the numbers, but I read quite often that half of the jobs that exist today will not exist in 10 years or 15, I don't know. This meaning that half of the job that will exist in 10 years, they don't exist yet. So people will invent them, and there is a lot of space, a lot of room to invent new jobs, to cross to cross topics, to cross activities, and so on. So I guess, especially in this urban farming, urban nature, there is a lot of things to do in participative way. It's about always going in small spaces, optimizing productions and so on. So it's a really interesting that area, and I think there is a lot of things to invent. So just listen to yourself, be patient, analyze things, observe, talk with people, and then if you have an idea, again, observe, mature, talk with people, because the idea you have today, after 1 year, this will be completely different, and probably the idea in 1 year is more realistic, mature, and this will have bring more chances of success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess it can be
So it's
kind
not,
of hard sometimes to imagine
yes,
that your new job might not exist or that you would just have to trust the process. But at the end, it's true that many
yeah,
jobs will develop and change in the coming years. Yeah.
sure, sure,
Mhm. Okay, so now if we go back to your company, before you explain maybe how it started, could you just explain in a few sentences just clearly what your job is and what your company is?
sure, yes. As I was saying, my company, which is not a company because it's small, it's named Culture d'entreprise. It's like a pen word in explaining about what we're doing. We're coaching companies and people in those companies how to design, how to build, how to manage a garden. And I'm not a landscaper who is creating a garden and giving them the keys of the garden and telling them, here is your garden, please do what you have to do, because people, as I was saying, they don't know how to do it. They need coaching. They need to get first only the fun and the pleasure of it before getting the charge of the time that it's needed to do it, even even if doing it with many people, divide the work. It means
Mhm.
like weeding 100 square meters. If you're doing it alone, you will take a few days. If you are 12 people doing it at the same times, in 1 hour, 1.5 hour, it's done. So the approach is really different, and that's important to have someone showing them this. So it's about giving an all-inclusive service, which goes from creating the garden, but also maintaining the garden. It's about providing the plants, the seeds, the material, the the advices, like having a permanence. I don't know, like being there every week or every month, and welcoming people, giving them stuff to do, explaining them what we are doing and why we are doing it, and having fun, because it's all about fun and getting pleasure about it. Because as I was saying, it's corporate gardening. People are at their work, and there is only a lunch break a day. So if you are not spending a good time during this lunch break, you will not come back to the garden. So it is really important that people are having fun. That's why I'm always planning that I'm an entertainer more than a gardener. It has benefits for the people, because as we were saying, they are getting some fresh air, seeing the sun. They are discovering a lot of vegetables varieties. They are discovering interactions between plants and insects, and they are discovering interactions, benefits from a plant with another plant. And well, the subject is quite infinite, because we can talk of so many things in the garden. We can talk about the vegetables, of course, but what is the purpose of the vegetables? It's about getting eaten. So we can talk about cooking, we can talk about history, we can talk about so many things. It's quite infinite, and that's what's make it interesting, because people are coming with their questions, and I'm coming with a kind of knowledge, and we can all share this and we can discuss. Sometimes we're not even gardening, we're just having a fun and a talk in the garden. Sometimes people, they want to do something and have dirty hands. They can do it. If they just want to talk, they can do this too. So it's about giving everyone what they came for.
Yeah, and like you said,
And
it has like a health value, but also environmental benefits, and it's nice also because it's at work, so it's also wellness in the workplace and having social connections, so it's really good on different levels. Yeah.
definitely, there are benefits for the participants, but there are benefits for the company too, because it's in the end the company that sets up this kind of project, and the company, they can improve the wellness at on the workplace. They can develop, I don't know the name in English, but it's like environmental and social responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very concrete way of doing things. I mean, this cannot be the only one, but it's a way of doing it, and a concrete one. And it's a way of retaining like the good profiles, because in some places it's hard to get people and retain them, because people, they want to have fun and a job too. It's a way of attracting good profiles. It's a way, and I think really that it's one of the big issues of companies this century, is to be proactive in ecological transition too. And this is a way of getting involved in this. It's about allowing their employees to learn again how to grow their own food. I mean, it's not about getting self-sufficient. It's about building connection with this, and it's a way of connecting to your colleagues, to yourself, and to nature.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. And before we dive deeper, maybe into urban gardening, so if we stay within your company, when you first started it, did you have any challenges? Or did you develop it by yourself, or were you helped? Could you tell us a little bit how that went?
Sure, sure. Well, it's now 6 years that I'm doing this. I started just with one client. The first one was with my former employer, and when I left the company, that logistics job that I had, I told the boss and the sustainable development manager that I was leaving and what I was about to do, and that I would find it interesting that they would be my first client. They find the idea quite interesting, but they didn't have any idea about if people in the company would be interested in coming gardening in a collaborative garden. So they made a poll internally, and there were like in a half an hour there was like 80 people saying, yes, I'm interested, I want to participate. So they said, well, it's quite a tsunami, so let's do it, Jan. And that's how it all started. This first year it was quite a new concept, so I didn't get any new client, and I was not trying to get new clients either, because I wanted really to try to see if it works, to see if what I was offering was the good way of doing it. So I really took my time, and the year after I had 3 clients, and the year after I had 9 clients, and the year after I had like 12 or 15 clients, and now I am delegating some gardens to people because it's too much for myself. It's not like in a startup when you're just by a server and you can multiply your activity in 100. It's about people. It's about being there in the garden, spending some time. So, well, it's about a human adventure too. So
Mm-hmm.
you spend time there. So you cannot multiply things, multiply gardens. And I don't want to do it because, as I was saying, I have values, I have principles, and I want to live accordingly to those.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, I it developed like organically. I I haven't been doing any marketing or sales development. It's about doing a good job, and if people are having fun, they will talk about this to their friends and families, and the company, they will be proud to communicate on this, because it's one of the aspects too. Of course, it's a positive way of communicating around ecology, saying, well, in this company have a corporate garden, and our employees are gardening during lunch break together and having fun there. So it's quite interesting for the companies to communicate on this internally, but also for the public.
Mm-hmm.
So if they are doing advertisement for me, that's how I'm getting client, and I get contacted by other local companies that saw this in newspaper, or they talked about it about with that CEO, and they found it interesting. So, and they are calling me to see what we can do, because we can do a lot. We can do this if you have piece of soil, but we can do it, as I was saying, on a rooftop, on a parking place. We can do it on a balcony. We can do it everywhere. And there are solutions for every situation. I even have colleagues in Paris. They are doing this corporate gardening indoor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, no, it's nice to have an idea of the values of the company and understand how it works, because from an outside perspective it might be hard to understand the logistics behind like everything and how it works. And also, if I'm not wrong, so you have your company and you also work for another enterprise or startup that is called
Yes.
Noocity. And before I ask you more about this, I wanted to say that it's quite a funny anecdote, because I told you this already, but in my first year of university, I remember I did a presentation on Noocity, and because they're also developing products for urban agriculture. So I find it nice to have a conversation now, a few years later, about that company. Could you tell us maybe how you work together and more about
Sure.
Noocity?
Yeah. Well, Noocity has been created, I think, in 2013 or 14 in Portugal, in Porto, and they designed a grow bed which was not revolutionary, but well, really well thought, because it has a water tank below and it works with capillarity. And the plants that you plant inside the grow bed, they can get the water they need, but only the water they need. It's not about too much. And one of the biggest issues in out of the soil gardening is about irrigation, watering. So this is a really nice solution with a really nice design, very modular. You can put it everywhere because those grow beds, they exist in 3 sizes. And for me, as culture d'entreprise, when I had some requests from companies on rooftops, for example, where the weight is very important, it was always difficult for me to source those grow beds, like efficient one, because it's a lot of logistics with the wood, assembling the wood, getting the substrate, an adapted substrate, dealing with irrigation. So it was really, really a problem. And I met those guys from Noocity in 2018, I think, on a trade fair where they were presenting their product. And I really thought that the product was really a good idea and it could be a solution for my problems in this sourcing and logistics. Besides, I've been discussing with the guys, and we were really aligned in terms of values, see how we thought things, and so on. That we kept in contact. We've been exchanging during month, and as I was saying, that they were having a product, but they were moving from a product to a product and a associated service company. Like you can sell your grow beds to B2C, and maintain a relation with the end client through newsletters and website and hotline and so on. But if you are selling to companies, or if you are selling to cities, to schools, to retirement houses and so on, it's bigger gardens with many grow beds, and you have to have someone there, someone reliable, that can take care of the maintenance, the installation, the animation of those gardens, as I was doing in companies. And they were thinking about building a network of growers, of people like able to install, maintain, and animate those gardens everywhere. And as we were having a lot of good feeling together, they asked me if I would be interested in recruiting and managing this network of grower everywhere in France and in Belgium, because there is Brussels too. And due to my being an old guy in urban agriculture, like it's 6 years only, but I was quite in the first ones. I have quite a good network nationally due to this and due to some association engagements and working on festival and so on. So I had quite a good network, and I contacted those people from my network who were doing the same as I was doing in other cities, and I knew that they were encountering the same troubles as I was regarding source of wood, logistics for the substrate, assembling, and so on. So they were quite interested, and I built this network, and we're now almost 15 people in France and in Belgium, installing, maintaining, and animating those Noocity gardens, which are out of the soil. And we could say I could be a schizophrene, like having two different companies selling the same kind of product and service, which are corporate gardens, for example. But I'm with Culture d'entreprise, I'm doing it in the soil, and with Noocity, I'm doing it in grow beds out of the soil. So
Yeah, yeah.
these things are clear.
Mm-hmm.
And we are having fun because during 6 years I've been working alone, at least during 4 years. And when you have been working in companies where you had colleagues and so on, like, social link is quite important for me. And working together in your own business, it is fun, but sometimes it is difficult too. So I was quite delighted to have colleagues again
Mm-hmm.
that I share the values with.
Yeah, because it's also a exchange, right? Because you work with Noocity and you both
Yes,
bring something to each other because you were talking about the out of
absolutely,
soil, for
absolutely.
example. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and having these weekly talks with them, with the other growers in France. We're doing the same job, but in different places. So it is really interesting because we are having the same problems, the same opportunities, so we can really share. So it is really good to have this network
Mm-hmm.
for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And I'm wondering because we talked a bit about France, also about Portugal, a bit about the United States. Do you know, like, what is the approach regarding urban gardening worldwide if it's developing? Because from the outside, I have the impression that it's not so common yet, but maybe I don't know, I'm wrong. So could you tell us maybe more about that?
Well, I have the opposite impression because I'm working every day in this area, so I see
Mm-hmm.
what is happening, and I think that a lot is happening. Cities are really getting concerned with these kind of issues. Um, the fantasy about urban agriculture has been digested now. A few years ago, people were saying, yes, we will feed the cities in the cities. And it's absolutely not possible because you cannot grow everything in cities because some crops, they really need space. You cannot do cereals like for having flour and having doing bread from the city. You can do it a few bread, but you cannot feed the whole city. So you will need the rural agriculture, you will need the urban agriculture, and that's good that we're not putting them in competition anymore because they are working one for each other. They are giving some services to each other. So we're moving out of this fantasy that the cities could feed themselves with the urban agriculture. And what our urban agriculture is bringing, it's about, of course, producing some food, but it's about producing some social linking. It's about helping people to understand how it works to produce, how they can consume more in a sustainable way, like knowing about the seasonality of the products, promoting the local sourcing of the products, which means working with closer rural agriculture because all around the cities there are urban agriculture, and it's not a new concept dating from 12 years ago. Since cities exist, there has been urban farming. It
Mm-hmm.
was just a little bit forgotten during a couple of centuries, but it has always been there. Like in Middle Ages, well, cities were smaller, but in Paris in 19th century, they were really producing and inventing ways of producing in optimization, in being like in engineers of producing. There are crazy readings about that.
Indeed, it's interesting how we should not put them in competition because it's not all or nothing. It's not the cities are completely urban with no agriculture or no vegetation, and then the rural is where we have all the farming happening. But it's nice that you can do the link actually between the two, and yeah,
Yeah,
like I said, not all or nothing. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And it's very important because first, the classic agriculture, they could see us as a threat or as a joke sometimes. Those city people, they really think they are producing and feed the city. No, that's not what we are saying, guys. It's about talking, knowing each other, and building a sustainable future.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that seems very important. And just so that we can come to an end of the episode and do a little conclusion. I mean, of course, we cannot see into the future and predict what's going to happen, but you, since you're very much, it's your job and you can see how things are developing, what do you think urban gardening will be like in the coming years and what needs to be done still for you?
It's getting more and more mature. Like projects are now more realistic. It's quite difficult anyway to to build the business models, because they are quite mixed. The source of revenues, it can be the production, but it can be schooling, it can be formation, I mean, it can be bringing some social link in the neighborhood. But some of the benefits of urban agriculture, yet we don't know how much it brings to society. Like this social link, for example, it has a value, but it's not about a currency value. It's about another type of value. And having this in the equation, it's one of the big challenge that we have in urban agriculture. And still, I think it will grow, because cities, for example, they are discovering, they are getting conscious that their resilience, their feeding autonomy is really ridiculous. So as we are seeing with this kind of pandemic that we are having, and the trouble it brought in the beginning, like in supplies and so on, cities are rediscovering that they need to develop this resilience, they need to develop it, and urban agriculture is one of the tools which is available for that.
Yeah, like you said, it's kind of hard to measure. It's not like you can have always
Yeah,
statistical numbers and stuff.
absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jan, for this conversation. I know that I definitely learned more, and it's also nice to have a different perspective on agriculture, because when you think of agriculture or farming or gardening, it's not the first idea I feel like that comes to your mind. So it was very interesting to have that perspective, and thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Always a pleasure to share. Thank you, Nina.
And thank you to everyone who was listening. This was the Life They Live podcast. Don't hesitate to follow the Instagram account, which is the Life They Live _podcast, to give your feedback. And I'll see you on a next episode.